considered suicide. And ultimately, one night when I was preparing to, whatever, I spoke to the Samaritans. I don't know where that came from, but I picked up the phone and spoke to the Samaritans. Because, well, I know why, because I was high off my nut, and nobody knew what I was going through, or I didn't think they did, at least. And I didn't want to speak to my mum or my family or my friends, or I couldn't speak to my partner. So I spoke to the Samaritans, and that really was a 45-minute conversation. That really was the start.
Okay, joining me on the Freedom Pact podcast today is the comedian Daniel O'Reilly. You may know him as Dapper Laughs. Daniel, welcome to the Freedom Pact podcast, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, I'd like to start at the start. Really, it's been a roller coaster of a career for you so far. But if you can, just talk to me about a time before Dapper Laughs existed and how you ended up in this world.
Well, I was always I wanted to be an actor. I was into my musical theatre and performing and acting. I was an ADHD child. I didn't know it then. I got diagnosed a couple of years ago, but or last year even. But I was very crazy in school, a bit mischievous, and couldn't really focus on. I'm dyslexic as well, so I wasn't. Studying and learning wasn't my forte really, but the acting and drama, I loved it, expressing myself, being creative. And I decided that's what I wanted to do when I was very young. And I went to drama school and then went to performing arts. And yeah, pursued a life as an actor. But I learned very quickly that it was difficult to get acting jobs. I've done a lot of auditions, didn't get any acting work, and ended up wanting to perform, but working. So my parents moved away when I was 15. So I moved out really young. When I was around 16, I was working and renting. And I got swept into the work life very quickly, and realized that my dreams were sort of falling to the side, and ended up going away to Cyprus, doing entertainment in hotels, because you could sing, dance, do like the Grease shows and all that. And that's where I sort of became a host, where I was doing like game shows,
Hmm.
and I loved it on the microphone. And from that, I started getting into comedy, doing comedy around the game shows, and I learned that I was quite funny. And then I became good at it and got spotted and went on the cruise ships. I spent years on the cruise ships as a comedian, flying on and off. I was one of the youngest people on the cruise ships. Come back, I've always been an avid entrepreneur, so I started a business. And while that business was going on, I was doing the comedy clubs and discovered Vine, which was a social media app, and turned my jokes that I was doing on stage into videos. And that was it. I was one of the first, and it was a beautiful time in my life, man, just being creative and becoming infamous.
It's interesting you mentioned ADHD. A lot of people, a lot of successful people from the world of entrepreneurship, I see a lot on podcasts now, people talking about the fact that they have ADHD. And some people describe it as a superpower in a way because it allows them to hyper focus in on and know what they actually want. Do you see it in that way at all? Do you feel like it's a
Yeah,
superpower?
yeah, definitely. I've used that. I've coined that phrase. I've used that phrase myself before, and definitely. But you have to. It it can be really difficult to manage. With ADHD, you've naturally got low dopamine as well. So it falls into it causes a lot of other problems in your life as well. But for me, the ADHD was always it's strange because I thought everyone operated like I operated. I thought my mind was the same as everyone else's mind, but I found out through talking to different people, and through being married, really, or not married, but being in a relationship with someone for a long time, when she noticed my behavior being weird or different to other people, because I have a million ideas. I have so many things, a lot of different conversations going on in my mind all at the same time, and I literally have to pick what I'm going to focus on. And while I'm focusing on something, my mind is constantly drawing me to do other things. And that's the best way that I can describe ADHD. It's like having, where you'd normally have one or two conversations going on in your mind with yourself at once, we've got like 7 or 8. And it's it's if you have the ability to use that craziness and to structure that craziness into a creative way or into a work way, then it's fantastic. But you have to manage your mind, and you have to do work on managing your thoughts, which actually through my sobriety, I've learned a lot more about. So if you can harness it, it's a great power. But if you don't understand it, it can be really hard to live with. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
A lot of people who are neurodivergent in some sort of way, but haven't gone to be assessed, whether it's ADHD, whether it's, you know, something else. A lot of people may feel as though they could get a diagnosis, but I think are scared to, because they don't know exactly what that means for them. Will their life change in any way? You know, they might view it as a weakness if, you know, if they became diagnosed. What made you want to go out and seek diagnosis for that?
I had, well, because of my addictions, and also because I have a problem regulating my emotions and my mood swings. And this was it wasn't just that my mind was busy. I mean, I've got many different businesses. I've got many different projects. You know, I do podcasts, stand-up comedy. I make films. I've like I said, I've got, like, I own a nightclub. I've got a car rally company. I'm like, there's so much different stuff going on that to the outside world, it was quite clear that I couldn't focus on one thing for long enough. I had to be doing loads of different things. So, like, I looked like I had ADHD, and that can be like some of the benefits to ADHD or clear signs of ADHD. But also a massive part of ADHD is not being able to handle things like rejection, not being able to handle things like you know, you like, you know, alcohol and drugs and things like that having a much more powerful effect on our dopamine levels, because we naturally sit at a dopamine deficit. And like I said, emotional outbursts, big highs, lows. And I thought I was bipolar. So for me, going and getting the diagnosis was really just trying to clear up exactly what was going on with me, what was going on in my life. Because if you're not sitting at a normal state of like a normal state of mind. I mean, everyone gets upset and stressed and worried and anxious about different things. But if you're going like that from day to day, you know, then there might be something that you can do to help yourself with it. Now, you don't have to go on drugs. Like for me personally, I was never going to go on to the Ritalin or any of the drugs to sort of suppress my ADHD, because I saw it as a superpower. I think I can hold it a lot. I can thank it a lot for my success. But I wanted to understand it, and I wanted to understand what I could do with my mind to calm it down. And I learned a lot, and I love managing my mind and my thoughts. So my advice would be to anyone: look, you know, we're different. We're all different. You know, I think there's a massive spectrum from ADHD, autism to and whatever, and the neurodiversion, and everyone sits somewhere on it. Everyone deals with different things. It's like in America, everyone goes counselling. Sorry, once I stop talking, I can't stop. But like in America, like everyone goes for their checkups. You know, like their counselling over America is the same as us going to the gym. You know, and I think that finding out about yourself is really, really important. You know, because otherwise you look to other things to cope with life.
I mentioned at the start that a lot of people listen to this will know you as Dapper Laughs. And when you really started to develop that, I know you say it's more of a heightened up version of yourself than a character, but when you started to really develop the character of Dapper Laughs on social media, and you know you were hitting viral videos all the time. I remember when I was in university, in my first year of uni, I think you just played, or you were just playing at the Freshers Fair, and I remember everyone talking about Dapper Laughs was playing at the Freshers event. I remember you with this big thing. At what point in time would you describe as the height of the Dapper Laughs character or career?
I think probably when I got my ITV2 show, and just before it started airing, I'd done my first tour. But I mean, it was very weird, because the world hadn't really experienced like a massive viral, like when, like, you know, I had like 1 million fans on Facebook at the time, and I think There wasn't really anyone else that like personalities on Facebook. It was more like companies. It was like Disney or Sony and stuff like that. So it was a very new thing, and viral, going viral, and but also I was really naughty. Do you know what I mean? And I was very controversial, and I completely understood the controversy. I understood social media really quickly. I understood that whether you like me or dislike me, as long as you interact with the content, everyone's going to see it. So if you comment on it and say this guy's a knob, you're on Facebook, especially your friends are seeing that you're commenting. Do you know what I mean? So this was back before cancel culture, or this was back before before I even worried. Because if you imagine, I'm just a young kid. I've got social media in the palm of my hands. I'm full of ideas. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a house. I didn't have a career. I didn't have potential shows. I didn't have a TV show. I didn't have anything. So I didn't have anything to lose. I was just on a creative streak. Do you know what I mean? My mind was just full of ideas. And I really wanted to see how far I could push the character. And the character, to me, really emphasized what was wrong with lad culture, and Dapper Laughs always lost. He always looked stupid. Do you know what I mean? And at the end of the jokes, that's something that a lot of the kickback and the feminists and the people that signed the petitions just would never get. He was never the winner. He was always the loser. But yeah, I mean, I'd say around the ITV2 time, I can remember going and doing the personal appearances at the nightclubs, the freshers, the stand up, and people just going crazy for it. Do you know what I mean? And thinking to myself, fucking hell, this is mental. But now I can see what it is. When you see something everywhere and then you meet someone, it's quite surreal. You're like, oh, and also it was funny. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, regardless of what anyone said, a certain type of person liked it and found it funny, and certain people didn't. Do you know what I mean? And the people that didn't, unfortunately, they didn't want anyone else to find it funny. So it was a tough old fucking thing, but it was wicked.
Well, you mentioned there you went from having no money, no house, no sort of career aspirations, and then you were thrown into this world, like you said, of appearances and gigs. How did you navigate being sort of shot into that world? And did it go to your head at all? Can anyone prepare you for that in terms of the sort of ego boost it would give you, I imagine?
No, I don't think so. And I think, yeah, it did go to my head. I think that, you go through a phase of feeling like that you've cracked it, that that you're untouchable, and that your shit don't stink, and you can say and do what you want. And I mean, I was earning, like, I went from earning, I went from I mean, I sold my half of a business, so I had like 10 grand or something for the first time ever, where I'd sold my half of the business to my business partner because I was going off on my own, and then that 10 grand turned into hundreds of thousands of pounds when I was doing all of the appearances and stuff like that. And I made a lot of money very quickly. And I was just partying, I was drinking, I was doing my jokes, and I was pushing the boundaries more and more. And the kickback that I was getting then, I was young. You got to remember, you're talking out like, this was me 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So criticism to me then, I was not interested in listening to it, especially from people that weren't. My attitude always was, you're not a comedian, and you don't work on social media. You're a journalist, or you're an activist, or or whatever. But I learned pretty quickly that how fast it can slip through your fingers and all go wrong if you're not paying attention and taking criticism, man. I mean, I pride myself on, I think it's a real badge of honor, or a real show of maturity, especially for men, that if you, I still do it now. I put a video up now, and sometimes I get it wrong. Sometimes I'm talking about something that's too controversial, or I've put my point across wrong. I'll read comments, I'll DM some people, I'll talk, I'll take feedback, and I'll go, do you know what? Actually, you're right. That's probably, if I do a video and it rails up hate in the comments, about someone in particular, or like a community or a gender or something like that, if it rails up hate and I can see it, and it's creating like a malice effect, I can hold my hands up, and I'll do videos and say, look, do you know what? I think I was wrong with that. I shouldn't have said that. I'm going to take that down. And back then, you couldn't tell me what to do. Do you know what I mean? I thought I knew everything.
Wow, that's really interesting how you've learned from that, and you sort of know where to toe the line now. I
Yeah.
read in an interview last night, you said You know, you got to the point where you lost everything. You said, I lost everything, my career, my house, my savings, and I ended up in my girlfriend's parents' spare room. How
Yeah.
did we get there?
Oh, mate, that was a really dark time in my life. I mean, well, I'll talk you through it. So my, I'd, uh, yeah, I'd over the space of, I don't know, a few months or whatever. Obviously, my TV show went out. The press, I was arguing with journalists. They were doing horrible stories on me, and this is the problem that I had. Was at the time my ego was so inflated that when a journalist, like say for instance, for I don't know, for one of, I won't name them, but for one of the publications would do a story on me, and then I'd read all the comments. The story would always be very clickbaity. It'd be like a pro-rape comedian. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then it would be, and then in it would be because I was talking about rape on one of my stand-up gigs. But I was talking about rape at one of my stand-up gigs because one of the big publications had called my TV show an almanac for rape culture, saying that I was teaching men how to rape. With my TV show. My TV show essentially was teaching men how to talk to women. And it really got to me. My family's been affected by sexual violence, but I was very immature, and the way that I responded to it was incorrect. And what I actually used to do was target the journalist that wrote the story. So I'd find the journalist and I'd tweet them how I felt about it, and then my fans and followers would wade in,
Yeah.
and I thought it was my way of personally attacking the journalist back, but it got me in so much shit. I mean, it's not what you do. Do you know what I mean? Because then the journalists, they're like, right, fucking, what can we find? What can we do? Fucking hell. And I just stirred up this beast. And before I knew it, 60,000 people had signed a petition to cancel my TV show. ITV at the time were enjoying the controversy because it was promoting the show. But then one day they just said you're out. But the domino effect of that was insane. So by being publicly cancelled off ITV, every brand that I'd associated myself with then had to publicly denounce me. So they all went out and publicly denounced me. I'd been paid a huge advance on a full UK tour that I'd more or less sold out, massive tour. Then one by one, all the venues publicly denounced me. All those people had to have their tickets refunded. And then the promoters, I was in breach of contract and I got sued. And then like my manager dropped me. All the celebrities that I was working with and all the people I knew, like, basically you're on your own, right? And then suddenly I was just sat there. I couldn't work, I couldn't do a personal period. So I probably couldn't even go and get a job down um, down McDonald's or Tesco's if I wanted to. And suddenly I was walking down the street and everyone that was saying that I was hilarious was looking like awkward. Do you know what I mean? Fucking hell, he's fucked. And because I was so like, I don't know, so Larry on the way up, on the way down, everyone was kind of like fucking. But at the same time, and it was just before I'd done the Newsnight interview because I had to go on Newsnight. And the reason why I'd done the Newsnight interview was just purely because the press pressure, like the stories after stories after stories, and the journalists coming to my house and interviewing my family, and then the people speaking up, and every time I posted a video, it'd just be filled full of people. You're pro rape, and it was, I just wanted to stop it. So I said, before my manager fired me, I said, how can I stop it? And I said, we'll go and apologize, quit the character. And I thought, well, at least I'll get some respite, or they'll the onslaught will stop, because it was destroying me. So I went and done that, but it didn't stop. It got worse, and I suddenly realized, like, these people don't want you to apologize. They want you to fucking, what do they want? They want you to die. I don't know. They want you to disappear. But around that time, then my father passed away, and my father was just had a stroke and died. And I managed to talk to him before, but he was a massive fan of my work, and he was kind of somebody that was one of the only people that would talk to me about what had happened in a positive way. His attitude was like, well, fucking, it's their fault for giving you a TV show. Do you know what I mean? How did you even get on TV? Or how did fucking, you sold out fucking tours, you look what you did, don't look at what you've lost. And he had a great attitude. So when he was taken away from me at that time, I mean, I was already abusing alcohol and drugs to get myself through that time. But when he died, I truly was just like, fuck you to the world. I was like, if you're going to do that to me, then I'm not even going to try be a good person. I'm not even going to try and survive this. Do you know what I mean? And at that very same time as well, my partner, Shelley, she was told she had polycystic ovaries. So we were on the understanding that we couldn't have children. She became pregnant a couple of days after my dad died, and I just couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle it. And, you know, a big regret in my life. But, you know, I ran away and you know, hid away using drugs and drinking and just left her and yeah, considered suicide. And ultimately one night when I was preparing to, you know, whatever, I spoke to the Samaritans. I don't know where that came from, but I picked up the phone and spoke to the Samaritans, you know, because, well, I know why, because I was high off my nut and nobody knew what I was going through, or I didn't think they did, at least. And I didn't want to speak to my mum or my family or my friends, or I couldn't speak to my partner. So I spoke to the Samaritans, and that really was a 45-minute conversation. That really was the start of, like, sort of, you know, stopping the downward turn and sort of plateauing for a bit and then trying to sort of come back up. And that's when I asked if I could see Shelley and get back with Shelley. And, you know, we didn't have a house. I'd lost the house and everything. And she said, yeah, but, you know, I'm in Manchester and, you know, we'll take you in, basically, you know, because I had no family and, you know, my mum and that was in Cornwall. So I went up to Manchester and I moved into a spare room with her, the dog. She was pregnant and had no money, nothing. And I just grieved for about 3 months there. You know, I was about 3 months. I was just fucking trying to wean myself off the fucking gear and the drink and fucking breathe. And that was my rock bottom, mate. Yeah.
Wow. Man, there's so much in there, and this is what makes me really, really sad about the way of social media and sort of modern cancel culture, is that these people who, you know, believe that they're full of virtue and full of empathy for people, they're so quick to take something out of context, or, you know, one little mistake, and, you know, post it on their social media and criticize it to get loads, you know, to get the attention, to get the likes, but they're not having empathy for what may happen to that person, the effect they may have on that person, because once they're cancelled, they don't care about them anymore. They don't care what happens to them. And you won't see people talking about what we're talking about now. We won't see people talking about the after effect of things like this. And it's really, it is really sad to hear your story, an example of just what, you know, that level of cancel culture can do to a person. Because yes, your story, you know, what we're talking about there is really tragic and sad, and but I imagine there are other stories that end up a lot worse, or yours could have ended up a lot worse.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I know of people that committed suicide, you know, from you know, from being on TV and things going wrong. And I also, look, mate, the 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 difficult thing is for me is, like, look, I'm guilty of it as well, but I can check myself now. Like the whole Philip Schofield thing that happened recently, I really had a bee in my bonnet about ITV, obviously, because ITV had, you know, thrown me off, but they clearly knew about everything that was going on with Philip Schofield, and it was kept under wraps. And it was almost like, you know, I've done a lot of tweets about it where I said, like, it's almost like, you know, you can, you know, it's it's worse to joke about being a nonce than to be a nonce. Do you know what I mean? And it's like this culture that we live in now. And I weighed in hard on that whole situation. I was like, you know, because before it even broke, before it was all even on the internet, I was doing like pictures of myself looking out the window, going, "Here's me, you know, can't get a job," or wondering why I got or fired from ITV and Philip Schofield's still there. You know, I was doing all this stuff. But when he actually got fired and the shit hit the fan, I actually done a video, and I was like, look, it's all well and good, you know, he has done wrong, like whatever, but careful, fucking, like, the mob culture wading in, like, and I'm out now, you know, I've said my piece about what I'm saying, but, you know, it is very real that this man will kill himself now. Do you know what I mean? That is very real. Being publicly shamed and everything like that. I mean, rightly so, to get fired and stuff like that. But if the mob says, and the mob is relentless, I mean, some would say that he deserved more, but punishment. But the truth of it is what more do you want once you've cancelled someone? I mean, in any other fucking field of work, if you made a mistake in your job, you'd get fired, but you'd get another job. Do you know what I mean? It's very difficult. But I'll tell you what the benefit is, and the positive thing from all of that is, I'm glad that I dealt with suicidal thoughts. I'm glad that my addictions and everything, got the better of me, and I'm glad that all the problems that have happened, because it gives me it gives me something really important to talk about now. Otherwise I'd just be on this podcast telling you how I made millions out of dick jokes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, yeah, man. And a lot of the stuff you talk about, when you talk about your addictions on your podcast, Menace to Sobriety, really powerful message, important message. But some of the other things you've been talking about recently have really caught my attention. And I think, you talk about them in an important way, and you communicate them in a comical way that interests people. But the message you're giving is so important. I sort of, in fact, my brother tagged me in a post of yours a couple of weeks ago, where you were talking about mainstream media. I think it was the submarine saga, and you were talking about how mainstream media had everyone focused on this one story that involved about 4 people. Yeah, terrible, sad, but unfortunately, the situation is where it is, when there's a lot worse going on in the world. You were talking about mortgage rates, you were talking about, inflation, the state of the country, and that clip really resonated with me. And I think that sort of messaging is really important right now. I'd love if you could just speak a little bit to our audience on what you were discussing there about mainstream media and why they want us to be so obsessed with stories like 4 billionaires at the bottom of the ocean.
Well, it's you run the risk of looking like a crank, you know what I mean, like a tin foil hat wearer. But I really don't care about that. I like to talk to the working class, which I grew up on a council estate, and my views are always from like a working class background, where and this is very much like I created 2 characters called Jim and Steve that talked over the fence through lockdown about all the rules that Boris was putting on us, and really taking the piss out of the working class. I was taking the piss out of ourselves, because I was showing the world how the government view us, how thick they think we are, right? So for the government to go, right, your curfew's now, the curfew's at 11, or you can go to the pub till 10. And then it's like, well, no, actually you could go to the pub, but you have to sit outside, and all this stuff. And it's like the working class are going, oh, did you hear? COVID can tell the time, you know what I mean? And all this stuff. And you can see a direct correlation between what the government's doing at certain times with what's playing out in the media and how much attention they give to them, like this Hugh Samuels thing, or this Philip Schofield thing, and these things are huge stories in the media that take up loads of your time, and they're all about key things. They make you feel like you should be worried for your children because of what these presenters are doing, and it really sort of engages the public. And while that's going on, the government or the corporate or the country is slowly sinking into the ground. And what it is I believe it's to relieve pressure. It's simply to relieve pressure. It's like a valve. When the pressure's raising on the nation, when they're starting to see what's going on and they're about to kick off about it, they need to relieve the pressure a little bit. So they chuck in a submarine with a billionaire, make you think about, oh my God, that's actually crazy. Oh, they're down there. Wait a second, everyone. Look, just relax a second. Just chill. Are these guys going to be free? And it was fucking proven. They said, the Navy came out and said, we knew that they were dead a week ago, but the press decided to carry on. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's fact. They said that they decided to do that. And that's to relieve the pressure. I mean, look at what's going on over in France. Do you know what I mean? It's got so bad, they've shut down all the social media. They don't, we're in a financial crisis, and the truth of it is, even to me now, as someone that's fairly wealthy now, fairly well off, I'm in a massive house in Surrey. I've got a McLaren sat on the drive, but my mortgage is tripling. And if you look at what my mortgage is, my mortgage is scary anyway. Now my mortgage is tripling, right? That's tripling. I'm going to probably have to sell the McLaren to put it into the house to get the mortgage down. I mean, I know I've got a McLaren. I'm talking about a big house. You know what I mean? But I mean, what I'm trying to say is it's affecting everyone. Have a look at the working class. Have a look at the people down there that are living month to month and they've maybe got 200 or 300 or 400 quid that they're making last. That money's gone now.
Yeah.
There is legitimately people out there that are losing their homes. And do you think that they give a fuck about what TV presenters shagging who or what are submarines down at the bottom of the ocean? But they will get distracted by that for a week or for 2 weeks, you know? And what's the government doing about it? They say, right, we won't repossess your house in 6 months. We'll do it in a year. We won't kill you in 6 months. What we'll do is we'll extend that to a year. It's disgusting what's going on, yeah.
No,
but I do run the risk. I run the risk doing that type of content because you know, it's a very real thing. I mean, you can see through Andrew Tate and other people, it's a very real thing that, you know, you can rub the wrong people up, you know. I'm not into all of this like elite Illuminati, you know, secrets, you know, agents and all that. I'm not into that. But it is very easy for people to just go, oh, hold on a second, that's a little bit too much of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's like, I mean, just as you were talking there, I was thinking like about, you know, my mortgage is, you know, at the moment is fixed, but in a few years' time, I'm going to be hit with, you know, a serious raise in my mortgage. And meanwhile, instead of having these conversations and learning and understanding why, you know, the BBC have got me focused on playing a game of Cluedo as who this mystery presenter is. And I think they know exactly what they're doing, like, especially with the BBC, rather than dealing with the issue that's going on within the BBC and why these things are allowed to go on. They think, oh, okay, if we keep the name back and we get everyone guessing who it is, then they're not going to ask any questions.
No, of course, and you know, people say, you know, and people say as well that people say, oh, look, it's a conspiracy theory that the journalists are all told what to say. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's not like when they're all given the stories on what to report on. And then the journalists are told to give their opinion on that.
Yeah.
Right. And then so you've got to look at I mean, it's really deep. You've got to look at the people that own the stations, the news outlets, and their associations with the government and stuff like that. But look, you're saying that you're coming off your fixed rate in a couple of years. There's people that are off their fixed rate now that have gone from, you know, I know, and this is why it infuriates me, and this is why I do use my platform to talk about it. It's because I've got a friend that spent years and years and years, probably about 7 years, saving up the money to open a massive tattoo parlor, right? And he had a vision of it. He saved up all his money. He got in. It took him about a year to put it all together. All of the money that he'd ever earned in that 7 fucking years went into it. He built a brand, started the company, and then he opened it. And a couple of months later, they locked down. And then the company that owned the building in which that he was renting it out of, they said, no, we don't give a shit. We want our rent. So he had to pay his rent. He stopped paying his rent. So the company then just ripped out the fucking shop, ripped out all of his stuff. He lost his business. Now his mortgage has gone up and he can't afford to pay his mortgage. So he's going through the process now of losing his house. And if you look at that 3 years ago, that was a young lad that was a young lad that had his whole life ahead of him. And he was just about to become a success. He was just about to become an entrepreneur. Now, do you think that the end of that, would you be surprised if the end of that story was that he was hanging from a tree in the woods? I wouldn't be surprised at that, because a lot of men out there killed themselves for a hell of a lot worse. They kill themselves out over breakups. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, it's serious stuff to me. It's really serious, important dialogue to me that we should be having, that shouldn't be forgotten.
Another thing, message that I see you talking about a lot, and this is sort of linked in with the boxing training you do and what you say that does for you as a person. What do you think about the importance of masculinity in the modern day? And do you think that we're moving away from, you know, traditional masculinity now?
Yeah, definitely. It's such a, I mean, even you asking me that question makes me think, oh, should I talk about it? And which is so crazy. You know, what's wrong with masculinity? There's nothing wrong with masculinity. There's nothing wrong with being a man. But being a man has been under attack for, well, since I got cancelled. You know, banter, lad culture, you know, banter and lad culture and boys will be boy, you know, I mean, there's a lot of toxic stuff that's associated with boys being boys, but also, lads bantering each other and put it this way, when I go down a boxing gym in the morning, there's stuff that's said in that gym that you wouldn't want anyone else to hear, right? Yeah. And also, there's 5 or 6 of us, we all sparred this morning. Each one of us is not only trying to beat the other person up, but trying to push them. I'm sparring with lads there that are saying to me as they're sparring me, keep going. No, put your hands up or da-da-da-da. And then afterwards, it's a big chat about how we can all improve. And then, and then we're in a group and we're all like, good luck today. And how you doing? How's everyone feeling? And da-da-da-da-da. You come out laughing. I start my day with a bunch of lads. I think it's vitally important because unfortunately as well, we live in a world where men are naturally on the back foot. It's a woman's world, mate. The men are on the back foot. You can go into a relationship with a few £100,000 in your house or in your business and stuff like that. You can change everything about you to be with a woman so she accepts you. She can get bored and leave with half of what you brought to the table. Do you know what I mean? Or all of it. Right, and then you have to beg, plead, borrow, steal to see your own kids. It destroys men, right? So it is very difficult to be a man in this world. And I don't care what anyone says. It's true. It's very difficult to be a man. You've got problems. Who do you talk to? You want to talk to your mates? You're worried that they're going to take the piss out of you. Do you know what I mean? It's a very, very... And that's why I created the group Men and Their Emotions. There's 40,000 men in there that are all discussing every single... You can post anonymously in it and you can talk about anything from addiction to premature ejaculation if you want to, or parent alienation, or loss of business, earnings, debt, whatever you're going through. And that's why men out there are killing themselves in the tribes, because it's considered bad to be a man. Do you know what I mean? It's considered bad to be a man sometimes. And another thing that I'll say that I think's vitally important is that having any sort of boundaries as a man with women is also considered really bad. If you get into a relationship and you say, in order for me to feel comfortable in this relationship, I prefer it if you didn't hang around with them boys, and I prefer it if you didn't post pictures of yourself in your bikini online and and I prefer it if you didn't go out all weekend and you would instantly be shamed for having an opinion like that by women. You'd be called toxic or insecure or controlling. Yeah. But when it's the other way around for a lady, when she's insisting that you don't talk to them girls, or can you behave a certain way, and we want you to earn a certain amount of money, I want you to pay for this, pay for that, and make sure I'm looked after and spend your weekends with me, and if you don't, you're considered out of order. So it's a really weird, difficult time where telling a man to be strong, to have boundaries, to respect himself and to demand respect from his woman is actually considered a bad thing. That's mad.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was what you were referencing there or if you've seen it, but obviously those Jonah Hill.
I've seen that.
So the Jonah Hill screenshots of what he said to his partner at the time, basically setting his boundaries of the type of person he would want to be in a relationship with.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, and he didn't say you have to conform to this. He said you're free, to. If you don't want to,
if you want to do that, I'll support you.
He said, "I'll support you. You go away and do what you want."
And it's not really an intelligent conversation to wade in, and especially if you're Dapper Laughs. But I think it's a brilliant point. But to me, what I see is the narrative kind of turning back on its head a little bit. There's a lot of podcasts and a lot of TikTok. There's a lot of men that do the TikToking podcasts that are empowering men. They're saying, look, listen, you don't have to stand for that. You don't have to do that. There's nothing wrong, and I think that is vitally important. I think men have been, by society or just by the way of things, just being taken advantage of. It's so easy because we're such stupid beasts, man, aren't we? We're only interested in, when we're growing up, we're only interested in a few things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very easy to manipulate us or to control us. Anyway, I better leave it there. This is thin ice.
All right, man, we'll move on. Probably a smart move for the both of us. Just to finish off, obviously we passed over it, and it's a big part of your life. I mean, you dedicate a podcast to it. Is addiction and sobriety. At what point in your journey did you realize, okay, I may have an addiction, this may be a problem?
Well, for me, it was like, I guess when I wanted it, to be quite honest, it's nice and simple, really. The reason that when I realized it was a problem was when I wanted to stop doing it and I found it difficult.
Yeah.
You know, it's quite as simple as that. And I think that there's a transition. There's a transition. First of all, if you drink or use drugs to get smashed, to escape, to get annihilated, which is what I looked forward to getting absolutely hammered, then you've probably got an issue, right? That's not how you should consume drink or drugs. And to some people will watch this and they go, well, that's the only reason. Well, yeah, that's not right. Do you know what I mean? You know, I've got an analogy where I always say, like, instead of spending my weekends now trying to escape the life that I've got, I spend them trying to build a life that I want, you know, that I don't want to escape. And essentially for me, it was nice and simple, really. I was just the same as probably 60 or 70% of lads out there. I spent my late teens and 20s and early 30s every weekend drinking, going to the pub and seeing my friends and drinking, celebrating, drinking, parties, drinking, and occasionally using drugs. Coke was my like sesh drug. So, you know, every couple of weekends session and stuff like that, which was all well and good until you come across some really traumatic experiences in your life and you associate the drink and drugs with fun and having fun. And when life gets hard, like, you know, you lose your job like I did, or you lose everything in your life, or your father dies, someone close to you dies, you don't want the pain, you want the fun. So, you know, the drink and drugs turn into a coping mechanism, a way to distract yourself from the trauma in your life. And that's what happened to me. I stopped just going out and using drink and drugs. I was using them on my own. You know, every chance I got, I didn't want to sit on my own with my emotions. You know, it filled the boredom, and it helped me cope with the parts of my life that I wasn't enjoying. And then when those traumatic things subsided and my life started coming back to normal, I still got off me nut and drinked, you know, every weekend. And as a result of that, it was destroying my life, destroying my family. You know, my missus and my kids didn't have the proper version of me. They had like a hungover, stressed, pissed off version of me. My mood was up and down. I was horrible, rude when I was hungover or drunk. And I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. So I tried to go sober last year, and then thought I'd cracked it. So I thought I'd come back over Christmas, and it accelerated and things got really out of control for me, which was a scary point because then I realized, you know, I can't control it. I really can't. Because like the first time I went sober was kind of like for my wife and for everyone else because I was being an arsehole. But the second time I went sober, which is this time, it was for me because I was like, yeah, I'm pretty fucked, man. Once I start on that stuff, you know, it turns into fucking mayhem. My life turns to shit. So that was my journey, and here I am, mate. 9 months today.
Amazing, amazing. I love that. So I'd love to just ask about your support network because I interviewed someone the other day on this podcast. He has suffered with a really, really bad gambling addiction to the point where he placed everything he had left on this horse to pay off all these debts he had, and the horse lost, and he decided he was going to kill himself. And he went to the train station to try and kill himself, and he sent out 2 texts, one to his girlfriend and one to his brother, you know, explaining why he had to do what he do, and his phone was lighting up as he was waiting for this train to come, and it was only a text from his brother that made him step down in the end. You know, his brother just saying, like, no matter what it is, I'm here. I'll help you get through it. Doesn't matter how bad or how much trouble you're in. We'll stick together. So that having that level of support network saved this guy's life. I wonder what your support network was like around you and is like today.
Oh man. Well, I'm just going to share something with you that I got this morning just on this because obviously I talk to a lot of people through my groups, through my podcast.
Yeah.
And recently I was promoting my stand-up comedy tour, and I said, you know, I said anyone that buys a tour ticket for Father's Day, if your partner is a good father, if you buy a tour ticket for my tour, I'll do a video. And someone contacted me and said, you know, do a video for my husband. He's sober. You inspired him to go sober. and unfortunately, they contacted me this morning and said that he'd relapsed, and they'd had some time apart because of it, and he'd committed suicide. And this was a guy that I'd done videos for. So I woke up this morning to that, and it really broke my heart, and it made me realize that, even when you think that you've got great support and a great support network, and even if you have got support, when you get in them dark times, you are so alone, so alone. So it is important to like you're doing to me now, is to make me think, what is my support network? Who do I reach out to? Who would I reach out to? And I think the truth of it is, for me, I'm surrounded by friends and people that I could reach out to. My uncle Dennis is a great one. I reached out to him when I was at my lowest, and he looked after me. And I've reached out to, I don't know really. I don't know. Like I've got friends that I talk to, but I think really my wife, because once I completely opened up that I was sort of helpless to what I was going through, she's always been there for me to talk to understand. Do you know what I mean? So I think unless I had a problem with her, it would probably be my uncle Dennis, or it would be her. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because we're surrounded by people that love us, but I mean, who do you really turn to? And I think what that guy did was really important. You just got to reach out to everyone, I think. And the beautiful thing about problems is everyone's got them. So I think whatever you think, I mean, this poor fella, he's left his wife there, and whatever, you don't know what he's going through, but ultimately the truth of it is, whatever it is, isn't worth it, is it? So it's a bit dark. It's a bit shame to finish on that darkness, but
no, man. Well, we'll try and lighten it up just before we leave now in a minute. But
go on.
So your podcast, you mentioned the Menace to Sobriety. It's obviously, you discuss these things, but what has that been like in sort of your recovery? It must have a massive positive impact on yourself.
My God, mate. Yeah. So when I truly decided that, and look, you're talking to someone that fucking loved the sesh, mate.
Yeah.
I loved drinking. I loved getting on the packet with my friends. It was just part of me, man. It was like, I mean, I'm surprised that I managed to achieve anything in my life, because it would be like I'm obliterated at the weekend, and then trying to recover Monday, Tuesday, and then working like Wednesday, Thursday, and then doing it all over again. It was some fucking roller coaster. Do you know what I mean? But when I truly decided that I was going to go sober, I understood that it had to be a huge lifestyle change, because my whole life, I mean, I used to sell beer. I had my own beer brand where I sold beer. I fucking owned a nightclub. I had a song called Proper Naughty Sesh that was about session. Do you know what I mean? That charted. It was like my whole life revolved around it. My content revolved around it. So I knew that my work, that what I was doing, I was terrified, because I was like, the only way that I'm ever going to stay sober is if I scream to the world that I'm sober now, that I'm not drinking. And also I start learning about it and creating content about it. I have to integrate it into my life. It has to become my new life. Do you know what I mean? I have to live it, breathe it. And it fucked my audience up, man, because I lost hundreds of thousands of fucking followers across my social media when I started talking about it, because I built up a massive army of fucking sesh heads. And people don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it, especially if they're going through it, or they don't think they've got a problem. Majority of people ain't got a problem. So, but yeah, and that's why it was. And I thought, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do fucking 6 months of a podcast every week, and I'm going to get someone that I can learn something from about sobriety. So I went and got all the books on sobriety, read the books, got the authors, got them on, got interesting people on, and I learned fucking everything you could think of about mindset, about triggers, about your lifestyle, your circle of friends, your thinking, how to replace your addictions with positive addictions, what to look out for in case you're going to relapse, how to, loads of stuff. And yeah, it served me well, and in turn shared it, so helped other people. So I'm proud, really proud of this year, man.
So we've had quite a deep conversation today for for 10:30 in the morning. Quite a hard start, but let's brighten it up. Let's let these people know this UK tour you've got coming up. Where can people find you? What can they expect? Because it's Daniel O'Reilly. It's not Dapper Laughs this time around, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You'll be surprised to know after if you've got this far through the podcast and all of that. I am actually quite funny. I do funny stuff, but yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, man, and it kind of symbolizes everything that's happened because in the last 10 years, it's been impossible for me to get a tour because of being cancelled. And it's almost like I didn't deserve it. Do you know what I mean? Because up until going sober, I still had an element of me that was felt hard, really hard done by, and that it was unfair what happened. But through my sobriety, you get a lot of clarity. And, I look back and I'm like, I was a twat. Do you know what I mean? I was a bit of a knob. And through sort of like putting out that positive stuff and, 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 trying to be better for my family, I feel the tour came up. The promoters came and they said, look, we think you'll be accepted by the industry again. We want to go out to the venues and see if the venues will take you. And they all jumped at it. I was so surprised. And we got 28 in total across the whole UK. It's 20,000 tickets. We're about halfway sold through it already, and it's not till January. But it's going to be some show. We're writing at the moment, out testing material, and we're going to all the towns around the country. And you can get your tickets on my Instagram. Just either DM me or just click the link in my bio. But yeah, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Amazing. Well, I'll leave that in the show notes below so everyone can go and check it out. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today, man. I know some of the topics we spoke about aren't the easiest to talk about, but I think they're important and I think you do it really well. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. See you soon, guys. Go follow me on Instagram. I'll chat to you there.